Joining me now is Jean-Francois Beland. He is the Vice President of Resources Québec. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks.
Now, for those who may not be familiar, could you describe the role Resources Québec does in terms of advancing the province's plan for critical and strategic minerals?
Yes, so we're in the vision of Investissement Québec. As Investment Québec role is very simple. There's three main roles. One being attraction of foreign investment. That's IQI, Investissement Québec International. There's also the banking role, so we're financing projects. And the third role being the lead on industrial policy for a few files. And that's exactly where Ressources Québec stand. We are in charge of policy, industrial policy on mining, critical minerals, battery strategy, hydrogen, energy at large, resource at large, forestry, and in parallel, financing in this sector. So critical minerals are clearly what we are doing. It's part of the duo where public policy being drafted and put in place at the Department of Natural Resources of Quebec. And from there, with my colleagues, we implement these policy. We implement these policy, putting them in the applied way with industrial policy and financing the project, depending of the range of the project, but clearly putting in place all the financial condition to make project move forward rapidly.
So having said that, could you give us sort of a day-to-day real-world example where Resources Québec was instrumental in helping to finance a project or using some policy to advance a project? A few examples would be great.
I'll give you two simple examples. Nemaska Lithium, a project well-known, well-documented in Quebec, where Investment Quebec, with our partner, Investment Quebec own 50% of the project. From there, we took the project, put in place the financial condition, put in place the policy condition to move the project forward. Now the project the mining is being put in place to move forward, producing lithium, and the processing plant construction is beginning in Bécancour, Quebec. So essentially, we use this project, Nemaska, producing lithium, to be the base, the first step of our clear, structured Quebec battery strategy, from mining to cell, including recycling. So the basic element of the battery strategy of Quebec is being the critical minerals, namely in that case, lithium. And that's where Investment Quebec, Ressources Québec took a role moving forward this project, taking care that everything is aligned to put in place a full industrial supply chain for the battery strategy. Other example, we're doing exactly the same thing with Moblan. Moblan is owned at 60% by Sayona Mining, 40% by Ressources Québec, by Investment Quebec. The same thing, we're putting in place condition, working with the local partners, local communities, putting all the winning condition together, make sure that we can execute, put the plan forward, and put the mining activity and processing activity together to foster the Quebec battery strategy.
Jean-Francois, you mentioned Bécancour, which is really becoming quite prominent and getting a lot of coverage. The Globe and Mail, for example, had a 2-page spread a few weeks ago on that city, really becoming a hub for critical minerals. So give us a boots on the ground sense of what's actually happening there.
Yes, it is a success story. Bécancour has a long industrial history. It started in the 60s. There's an aluminum smelter there. There was 2 nuclear plant, heavy water plant. The reality is that we are in a situation where the SPIB, la Société Portuaire Industrielle de Bécancour. So there's a small crown corporation who owns the land, industrial land, has the power. The power is in Bécancour, and all the transport connections are there. So we were able to put in place all the conditions to put Bécancour as the hub of the Quebec battery strategy. The battery processing will be spread out all over Quebec, but the main center will be in Bécancour. You will have Nemaska Lithium, Nouveau Monde Graphite also announced going to Bécancour. GM POSCO announced, and I was there Monday, and the building is raising rapidly. So there's a lot of progress being done in Bécancour. But Bécancour, originally, we need to remember, it's a 14,000 habitant village located between Montreal and Quebec, directly in front of Trois-Rivières on the other side of the St. Lawrence River. It's a small place where it's becoming, I was in New York 3 weeks ago. I'm in New York. First thing you see, you are there with major bankers and all this, and they're talking about Bécancour like if it was the new hub of the battery, one of the top battery hub in the world. Bécancour will be the equivalent of for the aerospace industry, the plane industry, of Seattle, Toulouse, and Montreal. Very large industrial hub, focus around the battery, not the airspace in that case, but Bécancour will be one of the clearly top battery hub in the world at this point.
Well, that's all very exciting. Now, you mentioned being in New York. We were there as well. We missed each other a little bit, but here we are today. So I'm curious, when you go to events like that, various conferences, or you're in meetings with investors, what kind of questions do you get? What kind of feedback do you get about Quebec as a place to do business and a place to invest in the critical minerals sector?
It's all a question about understanding what we want to do, what's the goal, what's the purpose of Investment Quebec, in the sense that it is a lot of people are impressed by the way we do, the way we move forward rapidly, the way we put in place the perfect condition to make the things happen. We have essentially a red carpet approach where, when you're focused on what we are looking at to do in the battery sector, we're moving rapidly. We're working closely with the players, private sector, all the departments aligned. We have a single point of contact, a small team, focused, dedicated to make things happen. And that's the question people are asking. Why are we having so much success? Why are we moving so rapidly? The reality is the industrial policy, the critical minerals, the energy, clean renewable energy, namely Hydro-Québec in our case. So there's all these conditions that people want to understand. What's the secret recipe of all this? And that's, people want to understand. People try to, and after move forward with the consideration for plant selection to move in Quebec or move in Bécancour. But it's really understanding why. Why is everybody looking at Bécancour? Why everybody wants to consider Quebec as a place to invest in the battery strategy?
Well, it sounds like Quebec really is becoming a bit of a beacon and a template for other jurisdictions. So let's take that further as we wrap it up here in terms of the vision and the goal. If you could look out, let's say, 10 years, what do you think Quebec looks like in terms of supplying critical and strategic minerals to North America and the rest of the world?
Yeah, but it's our strategy is clear, focus, and with targets. We want to be involved from in the critical mineral strategy, involved in the battery materials. So being there from mining to the cell and having the recycling, and we want to have a place in all the sector of this value chain. So we want to be fully integrated to the North American and let's say European value chain of the cars, battery, electrical vehicle, and in parallel other segment where critical mineral are needed. And it's the Quebec critical mineral strategy is very clear, focused, like our battery strategy, and it's really putting the execution and being one of the tier one ESG friendly green energy hub of critical minerals in the world, supplying our colleagues, allied partners in the worldwide supply chain. So that's clearly the place we stand to be in 10 years.
Well, thank you for your time today, Jean-Francois. We appreciate the update. Very exciting stuff in Quebec, clearly, and we'll catch up down the road.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Jean-Francois Beland, he is the VP of Resources Québec.